Every product you touch carries a hidden price. This isn't just about money. It's about a silent system that shifts the true cost of production onto unsuspecting nations and, ultimately, you. This engineered pattern has devastating consequences for global finance. You likely pay for this insidious pattern every day without even realizing it. From the clothes on your back to the technology in your hand, an invisible ledger tracks the real, externalized debt. Let me show you how this global shell game works. This isn't speculation. It's a meticulously documented economic reality. Corporations subtly offload liabilities, creating a web of financial vulnerability across the planet. The impacts are far-reaching and deeply personal to your financial future. This process isn't accidental. It's a design. The system ensures that the profits stay centralized while the cleanup, the worker injuries, and the environmental damage become someone else's problem. You are paying for their choices, whether you know it or not. But to truly grasp the scale of this deception, we must look beyond the gleaming skyscrapers and examine the historical roots of this dangerous economic strategy. The pattern emerges from centuries of global exploitation, perfected over time. We will uncover how a seemingly efficient global supply chain became a masterclass in liability avoidance. It's a story of powerful entities exploiting regulatory gaps and economic desperation to their immense financial advantage, at everyone else's expense. This system dictates who bears the costs when things inevitably go wrong. It determines which communities are left to rebuild, and which governments are burdened with unpayable debts. You are about to see the true cost of convenience. So, how did we arrive at a point where the world's most profitable industries can operate with such a hidden, destructive financial footprint? Let me show you the historical blueprint of this pervasive economic pattern. The roots of externalized costs stretch back centuries, far beyond modern corporations. Colonial powers, for instance, routinely extracted resources while leaving environmental devastation and social unrest in their wake, avoiding long-term accountability. This wasn't merely plunder. It was a sophisticated economic model designed to transfer risks. The human and ecological burdens of resource extraction, like mining or deforestation, were never factored into the colonizers' balance sheets. You financed it. Even in the early industrial era, factories spewed pollution into rivers and air, knowing communities would pay the health costs. This pattern persisted, where the true price of production was never fully accounted for by the beneficiaries. It was simply exported. The legal and financial structures evolved to protect these powerful interests. Limited liability corporations, for example, shielded owners from personal responsibility for environmental damage or worker exploitation. This was a critical turning point. This mechanism allowed for explosive industrial growth, but at a hidden cost borne by the public. When rivers caught fire or workers faced unsafe conditions, the corporations often declared bankruptcy, leaving taxpayers to foot the cleanup bill. You paid. Consider the asbestos industry, a stark example. Companies knowingly exposed workers to deadly fibers for decades, then fought legal battles for years. They dissolved or restructured, shifting massive healthcare costs onto society. It was a calculated transfer. This isn't just history. It's the blueprint. The core principle remains: maximize profit by minimizing direct liability. The modern global supply chain simply optimized this ancient strategy for a new era, affecting your world directly. You see this in the race to the bottom for labor costs, where safety standards are often ignored in pursuit of cheaper goods. The true human cost of these products is simply externalized, never appearing on your retail receipt. It's an invisible tax on the vulnerable. The same logic applies to environmental regulations. Industries migrate to countries with weaker oversight, dumping waste, or emitting pollutants that would be illegal elsewhere. The global environment suffers, and your health could eventually be impacted. But how does this historical pattern manifest in our complex, interconnected world today? And what are the real-world catastrophic events that directly stem from this calculated externalization of risk? Let me show you the undeniable evidence. The Rana Plaza collapse in Bangladesh, 2013, stands as a brutal testament. Over 1,100 garment workers died when a factory building, producing for major Western brands, crumbled due to structural failures. The brands claimed no direct liability. The factory owner was eventually arrested, but the global corporations that benefited from the cheap labor largely escaped direct financial consequences. They had externalized the risk of worker safety. You paid for their cheap clothes. According to a report by the International Labour Organization, the Rana Plaza disaster exposed severe gaps in global supply chain responsibility. It highlighted how brands evade legal accountability for conditions in their overseas factories. I've linked the source in the description. This wasn't an isolated incident, it was a pattern. From textile factories to electronics assembly plants, the narrative is chillingly consistent. Profits accrue at the top, while the human and environmental costs are offloaded below. It happens repeatedly. Consider the global e-waste crisis. Billions of discarded electronics from developed nations are shipped to developing countries for recycling. These operations are often unregulated, exposing workers to toxic chemicals. This isn't recycling, it's externalized pollution. The health costs of lead, mercury, and cadmium poisoning, alongside environmental contamination, become the burden of impoverished communities. Your desire for the latest gadget comes at a profound price. The corporations that profit from manufacturing these devices rarely pay for their end-of-life disposal. They design for obsolescence, knowing the waste will be absorbed by others. This is a deliberate, systemic transfer of environmental liability. See? Same pattern. Different industry, different product, but the core economic principle remains identical. The true price tag of our consumer society is being paid by the most vulnerable, without their consent or compensation. But how exactly do these powerful entities orchestrate such a massive, global transfer of risk and liability? What are the precise mechanisms they employ to escape accountability? You are about to discover the hidden levers of this system. The answers lie in understanding regulatory arbitrage, complex corporate structures, and the deliberate creation of legal grey areas. The mechanism is more ingenious and more ruthless than you might imagine, and it affects your wallet directly. The trick is simple: distance. Corporations use layers of subcontractors, shell companies, and offshore entities to create a legal firewall. When disaster strikes, direct responsibility becomes nearly impossible to trace. It's a calculated strategy. This is regulatory arbitrage. They exploit differences in national laws, moving operations to jurisdictions with lax environmental standards or weak labor protections. They legally optimize for lowest cost, regardless of ethical implications. Your money is used. This isn't a flaw in the system, it's the design. The system is working exactly as intended, allowing corporations to externalize costs, boost profits, and leave the fallout for everyone else. It's a masterclass in financial engineering. A study by the IMF revealed that developing countries bear 75% of the economic costs of natural disasters, often exacerbated by environmental degradation from global supply chains. These nations are financially crushed. You pay for it. While wealthy nations enjoy cheap goods, their corporations evade responsibility, and the financial burden of these natural disasters is pushed onto the global poor. The cycle of debt and disaster is perpetuated, benefiting the few. This is why sovereign debt crises often follow environmental catastrophes in vulnerable nations. The cleanup and rebuilding efforts are too expensive, forcing countries into further debt. It's a hidden form of economic colonialism, impacting your taxes. Once you see this pattern, you can't unsee it. Every cheap product, every rapid delivery, every forgotten waste pile is a symptom of this engineered financial transfer. It's a quiet, ongoing global wealth redistribution, but in reverse. The "this time is different" mantra is a lie. Every empire, every corporation, every system that believed it was an exception ultimately faced the consequences. The math always catches up, and you are part of that equation, whether you like it or not. What makes this dangerous today is the accelerating pace of global trade and the increasing severity of climate change. Right now, the same externalization pattern is amplifying risks, pushing us towards inevitable, larger catastrophes. Consider the deep-sea mining industry, a new frontier for resource extraction. Corporations are rushing to mine the ocean floor for rare earth metals, with unknown ecological consequences. They are externalizing future environmental damage. The potential for irreversible ecosystem damage is immense, yet the legal frameworks for accountability are still rudimentary. The profits are immediate, but the costs will be borne by all of humanity for generations. You will be impacted by this decision. While a few corporations gain exclusive access to new resources, the global oceans, a shared commons, face unprecedented threats. The fishing industry, tourism, and marine biodiversity are all at risk, impacting millions of lives and livelihoods. A recent UN Environment Programme report warns that inadequate international regulations for deep-sea mining could lead to significant and potentially irreversible harm to marine ecosystems. The scientific consensus is clear. All sources are linked below. This isn't just about distant industries. It's about the air you breathe, the water you drink, and the stability of the global economy. The ripple effects of these externalized costs inevitably return to impact every one of us, often through higher taxes. The scale of this problem is growing, and the bill is coming due. The question isn't if these hidden liabilities will manifest as catastrophic events, but when, and who will finally be forced to pay. You need to understand this now. This is not a conspiracy. It is a predictable outcome of an economic system that prioritizes short-term profit over long-term planetary and human well-being. The mathematical inevitability of these disasters is undeniable, affecting your future directly. So what should you take from this pervasive pattern of externalized risk? First, understand that true economic efficiency accounts for all costs, not just those borne by the producer. This perspective changes everything about how you view products. Second, be aware that regulatory gaps are not oversights. They are often engineered opportunities for liability avoidance. Demand transparency and accountability from the brands you support, recognizing their global impact. Your choices have power. Third, build resilience in your own financial and personal life by recognizing these hidden costs. Knowledge is the only protection against systems designed to transfer burdens without your consent. Your awareness is your best defense. True wealth isn't measured by what you possess, but by the liabilities you avoid. If this analysis opened your eyes to the invisible forces shaping our world, subscribe because the next video will expose another hidden financial burden. Have you ever considered the real, hidden price tag of the products you consume every day? Understanding this makes you an insider. You now know what they don't want you to know. Join us as we continue to uncover the hidden economics of our world. Uncovering the hidden economics of our world. Collapse Report has the answers. I'll show you where to look. Subscribe now to protect your financial future.